Thank you very much. I'm reading your messages. Hello, guys in YouTube. Are you ready for the next day? We have covered drama and poetry. And now we are going into 20th century fiction in Britain. Hello, guys in YouTube. And after that, we will go on to talk about non-British literatures, non-British fiction. So, guys, we start with the Edwardian realists, Rudyard Kipling. Rudyard Kipling came in 1865. He was born. Where? In Bombay, remember? And he was an imperialist. Rudyard Kipling was an imperialist, prophet of British imperialism. George Orwell called him. He wrote a lot about India in Jungle Book, in Kim. And his poetry also was there, which showed white man's burden. You know that Rudyard Kipling's short stories have come in net. Rudyard Kipling's short stories, do you know, guys? Kidnapped, Wireless, False Dawn, The Other Man. Many short stories are there by Rudyard Kipling. He has written a number of short stories. Not all set in India, but partly set in India. So remember that. Rudyard Kipling was an Edwardian realist. Edwardian realist matlab people who lived in the time of King Edward VII. Abhi King Charles ka time ho gaya na. We are not proud. We are furious. Anyway, in Edward VII's time, there was realism. And we have many writers at this time, like H.G. Wells, Joseph Conrad, Arnold Bennett, then John Galsworthy, E.M. Foster. One question from one of these Edwardian realists is sure in the exam. Remember, beginners, all these writers of early 20th century, whom Virginia Woolf attacked, they are important writers. And next, here I have given only Joseph Conrad. But Arnold Bennett, John Galsworthy, E.M. Foster also I have given. Rudyard Kipling, H.G. Wells, I said, all these are very important writers of this time prescribed in universities. Okay, let me ask you a few, Ford Maddox Ford. Let me ask you a few questions. Which among them wrote clay hanger novels? Clay hanger novels, bolo? Yes, it is Arnold Bennett. That is right. Megha, Shalini, Priyanka, etc. are reminding us that Virginia Woolf said these writers are materialists, while James Joyce and Virginia Woolf are spiritualists. That's right. Who among them wrote the Roman flu called Fawcett Saga? Who among them wrote Fawcett Saga? It is John Galsworthy. Very good. Who among them wrote the New Woman novel, Anne Veronica? New Woman novel, Anne Veronica? That is right, H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells. Now, guys, who among them wrote Morris, which has homosexual theme? Morris. It is E.M. Foster, correct. Joseph Conrad was one of the early Edwardian realists. Joseph Conrad was of Polish descent. He was actually Polish. Joseph Korzeniowski was his name. And his first novel, Almayer's Folly, The Nigger of Narcissus came after that, Heart of Darkness, and Lord Jim, Nostromo. Remember, the stories or plots of these novels could be important. Let me ask you some questions. Which of these novels is partly set in Borneo jungle? Bolo guys, YouTubers, Zoomers, which of these novels is set in Borneo jungle? Java place. That is right. It is Almayer's Folly. Almayer's Folly. Where was Heart of Darkness first serialized? Can you tell me, guys? Oh, Twist Land is also by Conrad. Shweta is reminding us. Yes. It is in Blackwood's magazine that Heart of Darkness was first serialized. Very good. Which novel is based on Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky? That is right. Crime and Punishment. Which novel is based on that? It is Under Western Eyes. Under Western Eyes. Which novel is set in Costa Guyana? Which novel is set in Costa Guyana? That is right again. Nostromo is set in Costa Guyana. In which novel is the protagonist dying of tuberculosis? In which novel is the protagonist dying of tuberculosis? That is right. Nigger of Narcissus. In which novel is the protagonist stealing a hoard of silver? The protagonist is stealing a hoard of silver. That is right. It is Nostromo. It is Nostromo. Next, we have to talk about E.M. Foster. Do you know the year of publication of Passage to India? Do you know the year of publication of Passage to India? That is right. It is 1924. 1924. In which first novel of E.M. Foster do we have the character Lilia? Lilia. That is right again. Lilia Honeychurch is in Where Angels Fear to Tread. Sorry, it is Lucy Honeychurch in Room with a View. Lilia something else. What was Lilia's surname? Sorry, Lucy Honeychurch it is. Lilia, I have taught this for KEA students. Lilia is in Where Angels Fear to Tread. Lilia, no, that is Lillian Hellman. That is a writer. Lilia is a widow. In, I don't remember her surname. Where Angels Fear to Tread is Lilia. A Room with a View is Lucy. Okay. And in which novel do we have a working class boy born out of wedlock, inheriting an old house, aristocratic house. Heriton, correct. Lilia Heriton, correct. Lilia Heriton, correct. Thank you, guys. Yes, Howard Zent. A working class boy is inheriting correct. House. Howard's End is the house. That is right. How many aspects of the novel does E.M. Forster discuss? That is right. 7. Which of these are the 7 aspects you should know? Okay, they might ask like that. That is correct. Okay, so E.M. Forster's friend who wrote Craft of Fiction. E.M. Forster's friend, Henry James's friend also he was. E.M. Forster was he was a Bloomsbury Group member. It is Percy Lubbock. Percy Lubbock. At this time, there was the beginning of modernism. We have early modernist writers coinciding with the Edwardian realists, isn't it? And starting from Virginia Woolf. You know probably that Virginia Woolf and James Joyce were born in the same year. Don't you know that? And Virginia Woolf married Leonard Woolf, who had been in Ceylon's civil service. Such biographical details could be important. And guys, Virginia Woolf was one of the Bloomsbury Group members. She was influenced by G.E. Moore's Principia Ethica. She was closely associated with E.M. Forster, Roger Fry. Her own nephew, Quentin Bell, wrote her biography. Virginia Woolf wrote the biography of Roger Fry. And Virginia Woolf's first novel is The Voyage Out. The Voyage Out. One question from Virginia Woolf is sure. One question from Virginia Woolf, definitely they will ask. Yes, Hogarth Press was created by Virginia Woolf and Leonard Woolf. Voyage Out is 1915. Clarissa Dalloway is introduced in Voyage Out, correct. Voyage Out, Night and Day, early novels, then Jacob's Room. There are many short stories also by Virginia Woolf. Kew Gardens, yesterday we had a question based on that, remember? And always remember the chronological order could be very important. Jacob's Room came in 1922. Mrs. Dalloway came in 1925. Will you remember? To the Lighthouse came in 1927. And Orlando in 1928. Two of the last novels are The Waves and The Years. Orlando is based on the story of Vita Sackville West. There is a man turning into a woman here and living hundreds of years. Isn't it? Very, very important novels are Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. Both are prescribed in universities. Right? Mrs. Dalloway is a female Ulysses because it was also set on one day. Mrs. Dalloway and Septimus Warren Smith. They are the two protagonists. And as you know, Mrs. Dalloway is hosting a party and she's feeling like an outsider. So is Septimus Warren Smith. Septimus Warren Smith commits suicide and Mrs. Dalloway feels like partly responsible for it. To the Lighthouse is divided into three parts: the window, time passes, and the lighthouse. In Orlando, next novel, the protagonist is a writer. He becomes a woman, and he writes Ethelbert, a tragedy. Ethelbert, a tragedy in 5 acts. Afterwards, centuries later, he wrote The Oak Tree. All that is described in detail in the encyclopedia. If you have the encyclopedia, read it. The Waves is written in the form of the monologue of 6 characters. Monologues of 6 characters. Flush is a pseudo-biography of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's dog. The Years is Virginia Woolf's longest novel. And it is more about history. And one more novel is there, Between the Acts. Between the Acts. It was published posthumously. So we know that Virginia Woolf is actually remembered for her fiction, then short stories included, essays also, in non-fiction also. Tomorrow we will talk about Virginia Woolf. She has written many essays and essay collections, as well as the Bible of Feminism, A Room of One's Own. A Room of One's Own came in 1929. For all classics, remember the year alongside. And small details in Room of One's Own, they might ask to check whether you have read. Will you remember that? She is giving lectures on women and fiction. And her lecture given at Cambridge is expanded here. She's talking about Oxbridge College. Such a college does not exist. And then she has written the essay collection, Common Reader. Common Reader. And in that collection, Common Reader, which is her first collection, she is taking the title Common Reader from Dr. Johnson. It is from Dr. Johnson that she has taken the term Common Reader. Will you remember that, guys? Her important essays that are prescribed in universities, you should know summaries of. I'm sure you know the titles and some summary already. Like modern fiction, modern essay, how it strikes a contemporary, and so on and so forth. All that is non-fiction. Virginia Woolf's non-fiction work, 3 Guineas, is the sequel to A Room of One's Own. And she has written The Death of Moth and other essays, The Captain's Deathbed, Moments of Being, and Professions for Women is another equally important essay that is prescribed. Professions for Women. When I was doing MA, that was prescribed. Are you feeling bored, guys? Because I'm going on and on and on about Virginia Woolf. Are you feeling bored? Right. That is right. Freshwater by Virginia Woolf is important, and Matthew Arnold is the host there. Shweta is reminding us. So read on Virginia Woolf tonight and tomorrow morning. James Joyce's fiction also important. Very often they ask. James Joyce, 1882, born, same as Virginia Woolf. James Joyce went and lived in Paris, and Samuel Beckett was his assistant there, right? And he wrote, but he could not get published because his books were controversial. His first book, Dubliners, is a collection of short stories. Please look up the contents of the Dubliners, because many of these are prescribed in universities. The Dead is very important. I myself studied the Sisters. I remember I've written a term paper on it. No, my term paper was on Arabic. We had the Sisters, Arabic, all these short stories of Dubliners. And then a portrait of the artist as a young man. Dubliners came in 1914. Portrait of the artist as a young man came in 1916. Okay, year of publication, very, very important. Portrait of the artist as a young man is also prescribed in universities. And it was first called Stephen Hero. Stephen Dedalus is growing up, his sensations, you know, the way he experiences life and learns from it. That is what Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man is about. In Dubliners and Portrait of the Artist, there are moments of epiphany. Yes, Portrait of the Artist is a Kunstlerroman. Kunstlerroman means story of development of an artist. Erziehungsroman means story of development in relation to education. Yes, Exile by James Joyce, the play is based on the dead. Exiles, actually. Exiles. It was rejected by W.B. Yeats. That is correct. And the most autobiographical of these works is Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. But his most famous play is Ulysses. His most famous play is Ulysses. Ulysses is one day of stasis. Nothing happens on that day very much in the life of Stephen Dedalus, who is searching for a father figure. Then there is Leopold Bloom, who becomes like his surrogate father figure. And there is Leopold Bloom's wife, Molly Bloom. Leopold Bloom is a Jewish advertising agent, and he has nothing to do in life. His wife is cheating on him. He is a failure. And how he manages to overcome this one day. And he forgives his wife, Molly Bloom. This is actually the opposite of the story of Ulysses and Penelope. So in modern times, the myth is being reversed. They can ask you questions like that. There is a lot of vulgarity in Ulysses, lots of disturbing elements, references to real life incidents. All that is what made Ulysses a banned book. When was it banned? When was the ban revoked? Such questions are already asked in it. Will you remember? And it has Homeric divisions. Ulysses is modeled on Odyssey, the divisions of Odyssey. Telemachiad, the Odyssey, and Nostos, or the return. Telemachiad means Telemachus is searching for his father. Odyssey means Odysseus' journey is described. Nostos, or the return, means Odysseus is coming back home. Yes, Ulysses is a play by Stephen Phillips, but that is nowhere near our James Joyce's Ulysses. It is a minor play in relation to James Joyce's Ulysses. James Joyce's Ulysses is regarded as the most important novel of the 20th century. If you take 10 important novels of the 20th century, number one was James Joyce's Ulysses. That kind of revolution it was, Ulysses. But when you Google search, we will find Stephen Phillips's Ulysses. We have been talking about it, but it is not even near our James Joyce's Ulysses. James Joyce wrote in a very disturbing style, which inspired Samuel Beckett and laid the foundations of modernism. Even more bizarre and confusing than Ulysses is Finnegan's Wake. Finnegan's Wake is a novel where characters change their identities. Names refer to characters sometimes, then it will refer to things. It is deliberately highly confusing. Finnegan's Wake. As some of you were pointing out, Finnegan's Wake, which James Joyce considered to be his most famous work, most important work, he himself called it work in progress. And he deliberately mixed up the plot and characterization to show the confusion that modernity is. Today in cultural studies, modernity studies is very, very important. Anthony Giddens is the most important figure in modernity studies. There are many others like Ulrich Beck, Paul Willis. Modernity studies borders on urbanity studies, urban studies or urbanity studies, city studies, so many different categories of cultural studies. One of my students has done research on city, and the concept of city starts from modernism. Modernism was the first movement in the 20th century to bring the concept of metropolis. And the metropolises eventually gave way to space studies. So just remember all this amazing culture studies branches and contemporary developments in the context of modernism. Talk about modernism, you can't avoid talking about D.H. Lawrence. D.H. Lawrence was born in 1885. He was not like James Joyce because James Joyce was a formal experimenter. D.H. Lawrence did not do experiments with form. He was actually a romantic poet. In poetry, D.H. Lawrence wrote neo-romantic poetry. Not Wordsworthian romanticism, but neo-romantic poetry. And James Joyce loved linguistics. He experimented with language. D.H. Lawrence wrote poetic language. He was completely different from James Joyce. Like somebody's pointing it out, Shaishta is pointing it out. D.H. Lawrence did not appreciate Ulysses. Virginia Woolf also did not appreciate Ulysses. I have given all that in the encyclopedia. Now, D.H. Lawrence is associated with frank treatment of sexuality. As you know, blood consciousness, as in Thomas Hardy. D.H. Lawrence was closely associated with Thomas Hardy and Walt Whitman. About these two writers, he has written critical works also. And D.H. Lawrence is associated with star equilibrium. D.H. Lawrence started his career with the novel The White Peacock, originally titled Laetitia. And the next novel is The Trespasser. Then came Sons and Lovers. Sons and Lovers, 1913, originally called Paul Morrell. And it's highly autobiographical, as you know. It was banned and underwent obscenity trial along with Fanny Hill and Tropic of Cancer. That was in 1960. And After that came The Rainbow and Women in Love. I have, in one of the storytelling videos, I have said the story of the rainbow. Team Tess will release it one of these days. I hope you will watch it. Detailed story of the rainbow, I have said in one of the storytelling videos. It is the Brangwen family that he has talked about in The Rainbow. And Ursula and Gudrun Brangwen, two sisters of the Brangwen family, are the focus in Women in Love. So they are companion novels, together conceived as one novel. And the characters in Women in Love are like the Bloomsbury group. They are visionaries, very spiritual people, unable to adjust with one another. And it is very highly symbolic. After that, he wrote leadership novels, which includes Kangaroo, The Plumed Serpent. You were telling me the names of these novels, remember? And Aaron's Rod also. Aaron's Rod. After that came Lady Chatterley's Lover, which was also banned like Rainbow. Lady Chatterley's Lover has the story of Lady Chatterley and Oliver Mellors, the lower class man, as the focus. There are two earlier versions of this novel. The first, Lady Chatterley, and John Thomas and Lady Jane. It is very vulgar actually, because in Lady Chatterley's Lover, the protagonists call each other, their genital organs, they call John Thomas and Lady Jane. That was the name of the original. D.H. Lawrence wrote travelogues, and he also wrote criticism. He wrote poetry. He wrote short fiction. So many genres that he wrote. Yes, as you might know, Richard Hogarth was funded by Dulal. That Richard Hogarth was the witness is not the key thing. Richard Hogarth was funded by Penguin, a multinational corporation. And that is how Richard Hogarth started CCCS. This is the income that he got, or the reward that he got from Penguin for being the witness at Lady Chatterley's Lover's, what is it called? Trial. So Contemporary Cultural Studies, Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, which is against multinational corporations, which is against high culture, was actually funded by Penguin. Did you understand? It is such a an irony, isn't it? Then Lawrence wrote short fiction that is also important today. Remember, because they have already asked about it. And England, My England, The Horse Dealer's Daughter, The Order of Chrysanthemums, all these are prescribed in universities. Remember, guys, you have to look up the syllabi of various universities. And there in the syllabus, what are the prescribed texts? And what is the suggested reading? That is very important in your exam. That is how they are asking questions based on various syllabi and suggested reading. Okay. So remember the step. That is how we have made the encyclopedia, and all this material also, whatever I'm saying, comes from there. Now, his critical essays on Thomas Hardy, on Walt Whitman, Why the Novel Matters, his Freudian analysis, 2 books he has written on Freud, Fantasia of the Unconscious, and Psychoanalysis and the Unconscious. They are also very important. All these are asked in net. He called the novel One Bright Book of Life, etc. Okay, now I am moving on because there is so much to cover. One of the late modernists is Graham Greene. Along with Graham Greene, there is also Somerset Maugham, who is a very important short story writer. Somerset Maugham is a short story writer, very important. Graham Greene, Evelyn Waugh, they are all late modernists who are important in net. At this time, many people were questioning modernism. That is how late modernism came into being. Among the late modernists, we have the Auden group also. Auden group poets are also late modernists. Somerset Maugham's important novels and short stories also you should know. Liza of Lambeth, starting from there. He wrote many novels, including Of Human Bondage, The Moon and Sixpence, Cakes and Ale, etc. Razor's Edge. Recently, they asked Razor's Edge and Kathopanishad, I think. And Graham Greene and Evelyn Waugh wrote Catholic novels. They had converted to Catholicism and they wrote about what is the meaning of Catholicism. You know, even if you do something wrong, can you still be a good Catholic? Such questions they raised in their works. Graham Greene wrote not only Catholic novels, Graham Greene also wrote espionage novels or international spy novels. That is right. He helped R.K. Narayan to publish his first 4 novels. And Mulk Rajanus was helped by E.M. Foster. Okay, during this time, more important, Graham Greene's Catholic novels are all prescribed. Brighton Rock, The Power and the Glory, The Heart of the Matter, The End of the Affair. All these 4 novels are Catholic novels prescribed in universities. Here, his international spy novels are also prescribed. Then, more important than Graham Greene even for net are some other contemporaries like Malcolm Lowry, Lawrence Durrell, John Masters, J.G. Farrell. They are all late modernists. Late modernists. Will you remember? Let me ask you, who wrote Under the Volcano, which is set in a Mexican town? Under the Volcano. It is Malcolm Lowry. Yes, this Katha Upanishad in English is actually Kathopanishad in Sanskrit. Malcolm Lowry, correct, Zoomers. Malcolm Lowry wrote Under the Volcano. And who is the author of Alexandria Quartet? Everybody answer in Zoom. 100 people come and only a few people answer. You should all answer. Who wrote Alexandria Quartet? Alexandria Quartet is by Lawrence Durrell. What is the importance? They asked in it. He was born in Jalandhar. Lawrence Durrell was born in Jalandhar. Who wrote Empire Trilogy? Empire Trilogy. It is J.G. Farrell, correct. J.G. Farrell. Troubles, The Siege of Krishnapur, The Singapore Grip. These are the novels of Empire Trilogy. That is right. Graham Greene suffered from bipolar disorder. That's right. Who wrote historical novels set in India, especially in the town called Bhavani? Who wrote historical novels set in Bhavani? Hello, it is John Masters. John Masters. Now, Aldous Huxley. In which novel by Aldous Huxley do you find Madame Sosostris? Madame Sosostris. It is Chrome Yellow. That is right. Chrome Yellow. It is his debut novel, first novel. And it is a setting is a party. In Chrome Yellow, setting is a party. And which is, yesterday we said, his first dystopian novel, Brave New World. Other dystopian novels, bolo? Yesterday we had said, na? Ape and Essence, then Island. Remember? Yes. And yeah, there is not one single Bible of feminism, Aisha Halim. You can, some people will say Room of One's Own is also Bible. Only in Christianity, there is one Bible. For feminism, there are many Bibles. Even Betty Friedan's Feminine Mystique is a Bible. Okay. Now, where do we find Anthony Beavis? Remember, yesterday we talked about it. Anthony Beavis, socialite. He is, socialite means living in society. He is in Isles in Gaza. Isles in Gaza. In which novel by Aldous Huxley do people use a hallucinogenic drug called moksha? Moksha. It is Island. In Brave New World, it is Soma. Soma, correct. In Island, it is moksha. Okay, I'm moving on. George Orwell is also very important in fiction as well as non-fiction. They ask many essays by George Orwell, remember. It is a very important author. We usually think that only two important books are there. Animal Farm and 1984. But his early novels, later novels are all important. You know what are his early novels? George Orwell's early novels. One autobiographical, Down and Out in Paris and London. Then Burmese Days, where there is Dr. Veeraswamy. Then A Clergyman's Daughter. Keep the Aspidistra Flying. Yes. He was a major journalist. Remember, guys, our George Orwell was a major journalist who contributed to the Tribune, and that is why he is many journals he contributed to. That is why he wrote so many essays. I have told you before, have you looked up complete works of George Orwell in Wikipedia? Oh my God, it's mind-boggling. So many works are there. Yes, Shooting an Elephant, Inside the Whale. Inside the Whale is a review of topic of cancer, right? Shooting an Elephant is about imperialism as well as Spanish Civil War. Both. Yes, correct, everyone. And then Why I Write, Politics and the English Language. Like that, so many essays are there that are important. Okay. Then there are many other writers, novelists who are important after this, such as William Golding, Muriel Spark, Iris Murdoch, Anthony Burgess, angry young man novelists. Angry young man novelists are many. Alan Silito, John Wayne, John Brain. Shall I ask you a few questions randomly? Whose first novel is Under the Net? Whose first novel is Under the Net? Under the Net is a novel, first novel by Iris Murdoch, correct. Zuma said it. YouTubers will hear me only after a little while. That is why you're taking time. Yeah. Whose first novel is Room at the Top? Whose first novel is Room at the Top? Oh my God, these writers I have described in a mind-boggling detail here. Yeah, Room at the Top is by John Brain. Remember my clue, Zoomers? Room at the Top. YouTubers, I might have told you also. Now, who created characters like Molly Jacobs, Richard Portman, Janet Woolf? Do you remember, guys? Molly Jacobs, Richard Portman, Janet Woolf. That is right. It is Doris Lessing in Golden Notebook. These are characters in Golden Notebook. Which novel is set in Imber Court? Which novel is set in Imber Court? That is right. Iris Murdoch's The Bell. Iris Murdoch's The Bell. With whom is the term crystalline novels associated? With whom is the term crystalline novels associated? That is right, Zoomers. It is Iris Murdoch. YouTubers, will you remember? Iris Murdoch coined the term crystalline novels in the essay Against Dryness. Right. Next question. Which is, who is the author of a famous Victorian style romance set in Lyme Regis? Victorian style romance set in Lyme Regis. Everybody knows, 1969 novel. It is French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles. That's right. French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles. Tell me who is the author of the trilogy of novels, A Radiant Way, A Natural Curiosity, The Gates of Ivory. The Radiant Way, A Natural Curiosity, The Gates of Ivory. This is a trilogy of novels by that is right, Margaret Drabble. Margaret Drabble. This is Margaret Drabble trilogy. So many works of Margaret Drabble are important. Read the encyclopedia if you have it. Otherwise, look up on your own tomorrow morning itself. Okay. Now, who's the author of The Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman? Post-apocalyptic novel. Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman. YouTubers, bolo. Post-apocalyptic novel. It is Angela Carter. Next, we have, look at the picture, Ian McEwan. The picture is Ian McEwan. Which is the Booker Prize winning novel of Ian McEwan? Booker Prize winning novel. It is Amsterdam. That's right. Amsterdam. What is common to Ian McEwan and Amitav Ghosh? Bolo. What is, this is gate style question. What is common to Ian McEwan and Amitav Ghosh? Both of them have written about climate change. Both of them, that's right, Nihar Praveen. Both of them have written about climate change. Very, very important. Okay. Which famous writer wrote under the pen name Dan Kavanagh? Which famous writer wrote under the pen name Dan Kavanagh? That is right. It is Julian Barnes. One sure shot author among postmodern writers is Peter Ackroyd. Peter Ackroyd, they will ask. Then Kazuo Ishiguro, they will ask. Kazuo Ishiguro is important. Peter Ackroyd, Kazuo Ishiguro. Will you remember to look up? They might ask you. They're always prescribed in all these syllabi these days. Peter Ackroyd and Kazuo Ishiguro. Yeah, John Banville, Julian Barnes, not so important, but yeah, important. Then among the diasporic writers in Britain, we have V.S. Naipaul, then Sam Selvan, Salman Rushdie, Imtiaz Dharkar, Haruki Murakami, Timothy Moore. All these are important. Hanif Qureshi. All these are important diasporic writers. Okay, guys, in Britain. And in non-British fiction, we have American writers like Nathaniel Hawthorne. Remember, guys, Nathaniel Hawthorne's short stories and novels, both are very, very important. Nathaniel Hawthorne's famous novels and short stories, starting from Fanshawe. Fanshawe, The Marble Fawn, Twice Told Tales, Mosses from an Old Man's, remember? Shall I tell you the names of famous prescribed short stories? Titles, The Birthmark is by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I hope you are taking down what you don't know. The Birthmark. Please take down what you don't know. The Birthmark. Of course, Scarlet Letter, House of the Seven Gables, Septimius Felton, The Oliver Romance. But more important are the short stories, perhaps. The Birthmark, Young Goodman Brown, The Minister's Black Veil, The Artist of the Beautiful. Important short stories. I have taught this in other occasions. Every day we don't get time, so I'm not moving into that in detail. I hope you have been studying. You have used previous videos also. I hope you will read extra also. Okay. Then during this time, there was another. Nathaniel Hawthorne was a dark romantic. There is another dark romantic that you need to remember. That is Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe's short stories also so very important. Yesterday we talked about his poetry. Not yesterday, day before yesterday. The Cask of Amontillado, The Oval Portrait, The Telltale Heart, The House of the Seven, Fall of the House of Usher, The Purloined Letter, many prescribed works. And there are essays also that he wrote. Essays such as The Philosophy of Composition. Then what are the other essays by Edgar Allan Poe other than Philosophy of Composition? The Poetic Principle. I have taught this in some YouTube live before. The Poetic Principle. The Rationale of Verse. Edgar Allan Poe's important essays. The Rationale of Verse. And also mark this, guys, the importance of the single effect in a prose tale. Who of the following talked about the importance of the single effect in a prose tale? It is Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, he was an anti-transcendentalist. Yes, Murders in the Rue Morgue is the first detective short story. Okay, next is another dark romantic is there, Herman Melville. Herman Melville's Moby Dick, Type P, Billy Budd, important works. In the 19th century, there is another important writer, that is our Mark Twain. Mark Twain was a realist. Mark Twain was a realist. What are the major works of Mark Twain, Bolo? Other than Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn? Let me ask you some questions. Then you will be able to remember. Which is an account of his voyage to Europe and the Holy Land. An account of his voyage to Europe and the Holy Land. Mark Twain's. It is The Innocents Abroad. Innocents Abroad. I will ask you, which is the story of a rich boy and a poor boy interchanging their roles in life? Mark Twain's novel, in which a rich boy and a poor boy interchange their roles. That is right. The prince and the pauper. And who is the rich boy? It is King Edward, who came before Mary the First. Before Elizabeth, there was Mary the First. Before that, King Edward was there. That King Edward or Prince Edward is that boy. And which is the novel where you see a man going to King Arthur's time. A Yankee mechanic from a gun factory are going to King Arthur's time. That is right, a Connecticut Yankee. Thank you so much. A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. That is right. Now, in which novel is a white boy and a black boy interchanged? Which novel by Mark Twain has a white boy and a black boy interchanged? It is The Tragedy of Pudd'nhead Wilson. The Tragedy of Pudd'nhead Wilson. Okay. Do you know Mark Twain wrote the book What is Man? And also Mark Twain wrote so many travelogues like Life on the Mississippi, Roughing It. Many of you were saying all that. I saw that in your Gilded Age also. Gilded Age also by Mark Twain. Now, advice to, I was looking for this. His famous short story, Advice to Little Girls, is satirical and very famous. Yes, Medhavi is saying that. He also wrote Advice to Youth. Advice to Youth. That is right. He educated people with humor. He criticized the Gilded Age. What is the Gilded Age? It's a novel. What is the Gilded Age? It is that age which gave importance only to superficial things. That is Mark Twain. Again, today I have not finished. Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway wrote Iceberg Technique, isn't it? Iceberg Technique. Reshma, please forgive me. I will stop in a few more minutes. O. Henry is there at this time. O. Henry, short story writer. Ernest Hemingway's important novels, please look up. He is also a very important short story writer. Ernest Hemingway's short story is also important. The Snows of Kilimanjaro, A Clear, Well-Lit Place. He is part of Lost Generation, correct, like F. Scott Fitzgerald. Then there is William Faulkner, who wrote about Yoknapatawpha. Yoknapatawpha is where he said, where our Faulkner set all his major novels, isn't it? Yoknapatawpha. What are the major novels of Faulkner? Recently in Northeast Sled, they asked about mosquitoes. Rose for Emily. That is short story. Bolo, what are the main works of William Faulkner? Yes, first novel is Soldier's Pay, Sound and the Fury, As I Lay Dying. Then Jefferson is the capital of Yokina Iceberg technique, Asit Kumar, means he does not reveal everything. He writes only partly. He leaves the rest for us, readers. He does not explain everything. That is the meaning of iceberg technique. All right. And did you understand? I just explained. Light in August. Yes, rain is very important. The Requiem, Snopes trilogy. Very good, guys. The Snopes trilogy. Then we have Sartoris. Yes. Then there are the major novelists like Henry Miller. Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, the Rosy Crucifixion trilogy. Very, very important books by Henry Miller. Okay, one more writer they're always asking about is Donald Barthelme. Donald Barthelme wrote short fiction. Very short works. Very short. He was postmodern. Snow White is very famous. He also wrote about other mainstream popular culture characters like Batman, etc. Hannah, Donald Barthelme, very, very important. And now some European writers I want you to remember. Remember Leo Tolstoy and Fyodor Dostoevsky. One of these they will ask. Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, both, please look up, guys. One of these you can expect questions. Okay. Then Albert Camus. Albert Camus also short author. I mismanaged my time and I was not able to cover all this in detail. Please look up as homework. Other European novelists like Thomas Mann, Jose Saramago, Milan Kundera, they will ask, Nikos Kazantzakis. Will you look up these writers? Very famous European writers, important ones you should look up. What are the important texts? What are the themes? Will you please look up? Don't leave out any important area. Then in post-colonial literature, they might ask about Chinua Achebe. There are only few novels by Chinua Achebe. You should know about them in detail. Nuruddin Farah, they always ask these days. Buchi Emecheta. Maybe Chimamanda Adichie. Please look up these writers. Nuruddin Farah has written many trilogies. Maps, Gifts and Secrets. Many trilogies. V.S. Naipaul, they might ask. Many novels are there in V.S. Naipaul's oeuvre, and V.S. Naipaul is often prescribed in universities. Nadine Gordimer, they ask. Nadine Gordimer's works you should know. That is also very important. I am just reminding you to look up all the works. Margaret Atwood, they will ask. Margaret Atwood, her dystopian novels, many feminist novels. Yeah, Blood in the Sun trilogy is by Nuruddin Farah. Michael Ondaatje and Rohinton Mystery, they might ask. They are asking. Michael Ondaatje and Rohinton Mystery. So many important works. M.G. Vasanji, they ask. Please remember these post-colonial writers. In our paid classes, I have given you short worksheets. I hope you are writing them. Did you work out the short worksheets, guys? There are like 25-30 pages, I think, for post-colonial. Did you work it out? Please do. Yes, take it. Very important. Very, very important. Then Patrick White in Australia. Amitav Ghosh. There might be questions from any of these writers. Salman Rushdie. Okay, I was just running through this last section because my time is up. We need time for rapid fire. That is why. Okay, rapid fire ab shuru hoga. Reshma, are you there? Next batch, somebody was asking, is starting in October. I mean, that batch is already here with me in Zoom. Next batch, shuru ho gaya. Their induction program is starting, is going on like this. But that is not all. Their batch will start mainly. Reshma, I don't have the keynotes. Reshma, are you there? Okay. I have made you co-host. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am. I have sent you in Telegram now, before it.
Okay, I will take it in a minute.
Okay.
Meanwhile, guys, as usual, we need a 1 minute break. I hope you are enjoying everything. All that we are studying, you are enjoying, I hope. And you are doing all your homework, I hope. Are you doing the homework? Yes, there are online as well as offline classes. Arey. There are online and offline classes both going on. There is also a scholarship exam, like I said yesterday. Those who register for our classes can take part in our scholarship exam and you may get up to half your fees reduced. Many people have studied under our scholarship scheme in the previous years. Okay, guys, I am ready. Can you see the screen? No, Cleo is not in this room. Yesterday, she was giving trouble. So I sent her to the next next door today. Okay, Reshma?
Yes, ma'am. I'm ready.
Yeah. You're not switching on your video?
No, ma'am. I'm not well. I'm not looking good.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay.
Sorry, but
you can ask.
yes.
First, post-colonial fiction.
Yes, ma'am. So the first question, who is the central character in Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's debut novel, Purple Hibiscus? And she is also, the central character is also the narrator of the story. Who is she? Options: A. Ogbaje Ojibita, B. Mary Ume, C. Kambili Achike. Before I ask the question, they are answering now.
Yes, yes. Everybody knows in YouTube and Zoom. They're all brilliant. I hope they will all pass because they're all such wonderful people. Even if sometimes they make mistakes, some of them, they say other things correct. No problem. The answer is
C. Kambili Achike.
yes. Kambili is just a little girl. She and her brother are growing up. Her father is a very strict religious man, Christian. And her grandfather is African religion. And she is looking at how these religions are clashing as she grows up. Yes. Next question.
Next question. Which novel by Buchi Emecheda is about Ada, a Nigerian who married a Londoner? Options: A. In the Ditch, B. Second Class Citizen, C. The Bride Price. Ada.
Buchi Emecheda herself was a Nigerian who went to London emigrated with her children. Her husband was very cruel to her. She had to divorce him. She had to struggle to bring up her children. She has written about all these experiences. Which is this novel? The answer is?
In the Ditch.
It is one of her early novels. You should know all the works of Buchi Emacheta. It is important. In the Ditch is where she is marrying a Londoner, but second-class citizen is where she is struggling in London. That also is set in London. Mother struggling with children. Next.
Yes. What was the original title of Cracking India by Bapsi Sitwa? Is it Sacred Games? Is it Ice Candy Man? Or is it The Lives of Others?
This might be easy for them. Because
Yes,
Sacred Games, because of the web series, they will know it is not Bapsi Sidhwa.
yes.
You watch the web series, guys? Yes, many of them are saying the answer. It is?
It is Ice Candy Man.
This is also from the perspective of a child. Ice Candy Man is a partition novel. Next.
Now, which novel by Margaret Lawrence follows the school teacher Rachel Cameron through a summer affair and its consequences on her life? Options A, The Stone Angel, B, A Jest of God, C, The Fire Dwellers.
Which novel by Margaret Lawrence? Remember, the prairie novelist. Follows Rachel Cameron. All the Manavaka novels follow women characters only. The three options are Manavaka novels. And the answer is?
Jest of God.
The novel, A Jest of God. Please remember the Manavaka novels, they might ask. Next.
Now, identify the short story writer of the collections Dancing Girls, Stone Mattress, and Labrador Fiasco. Is it Michael Ondaatje? Is it Margaret Lawrence or Margaret Atwood?
Dancing Girls, Stone Mattress, yo, the Labrador Fiasco. It is Dancing Girls.
It is Margaret Atwood.
Margaret Atwood wrote short stories, poetry, novels.
Now, next question. Who wrote a series of fictionalized memoirs such as Boyhood, Youth, and Summertime? Options J.M. Coetzee, option B Chinua Achebe, option C Nadine Gordimer.
Boyhood, Youth, these also sound like Leo Tolstoy's autobiographies. Leo Tolstoy's autobiography is also similar. What is the answer here?
It is J.M. Coetzee.
Remember, Coetzee is a very important writer of post-colonial literature. You should definitely look up Coetzee. American fiction.
Question. Which novel by Toni Morrison won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1988? Is it Sula? Is it Song of Solomon? Or is it Beloved?
Toni Morrison's Pulitzer Prize, 1988. Tell me, guys, they're answering.
Yes.
And the answer is?
Beloved.
Beloved, the story of Sete, the slave who had to kill her daughter. Next.
Next question. And Goodbye to You Too, Old Rights of Man. Which one among Melville's characters has uttered this? Options Billy Budd, B. Captain Ahab, Option C, Israel Potter.
If you know the story a little bit, you will be able, not little bit in detail, you will be able to answer. Always look up excerpts from important prescribed works. Here the answer is Billy Budd.
Yes.
Billy Budd Sailor is prescribed in universities. You should know the detailed summary. Okay, next.
Next question. Who of these writers wrote Southern Gothic novels? William S. Burroughs, William Faulkner, or F. Scott Fitzgerald?
Remember, after the Civil War, novels of disturbing plots set in the southern states of America, they were called Southern Gothic novels. So, what is the answer here? It is very famous writer. It is
William Faulkner.
That's right. Southern Gothic. Then.
Now, which of these short stories by Edgar Allan Poe describes a murder the narrator committed? The narrator committed a murder. Which of these short stories describe that? The Telltale Heart, the Cask of Amontillado, the Orwell Portrait, the Fall of the House of Usher.
The horror of the story is that the murderer is narrating it. He is telling us how he murdered a nobleman. That is the horror of the story. It is
The Telltale Heart and the Cask of Amontillado.
two answers are there. The Cask of Amontillado and Telltale Heart both are about murderers talking to us about the murder they committed. Now, European fiction.
First question in European fiction, which is Fyodor Dostoevsky's last novel that enters deeply into questions of God, free will, and morality. Options: Crime and Punishment, The Brothers Karamazov, The House of the Dead. Last novel.
Last novel that enters deeply into spiritual questions. It is, many of you are answering correctly.
The Brothers Karamazov.
That's right. The story of the Karamazov brothers, Ivan. Before that, Dmitri, Ivan, Alyosha, and Smerdyakov. Smerdyakov kills their father, and Dmitri is put under trial. Dmitri represents physical life. Ivan represents philosophical life. Alyosha represents spiritual life. It is a very, very important novel. 2-3 times recently they have asked questions. Now.
Next question. Which 1886 novella tells the story of a high court judge in 19th century Russia and his sufferings and death from a terminal illness? Is it Leo Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich? Is it Nikolai Gogol's Dead Souls? Or is it Fyodor Dostoevsky's The House of the Dead?
There is a judge who is suffering from cancer or something of the stomach, and slowly he is dying, and he is able to overcome his self-centeredness finally as he dies. Which is that novella? It is
Leo Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich.
Because there are lots of questions from Leo Tolstoy. We don't have Cleo today, isn't it, Reshma?
Yes, ma'am. Cleo's favorite author.
Yeah.
Now, next question. What is the Christmas gift Grigor Samsa wanted to give his sister Grete in Kafka's Metamorphosis? He wanted to send her to learn music. He wanted to buy her a red dress, or did he wanted to buy her a new violin?
Gregor Samsa is a salesman. One day he suddenly changes into a roach or ungezifer. And suddenly he realizes that nobody wants him. Before that, what did he want to buy for his sister or get for his sister? What is the answer?
He wanted to send her to learn music.
Are you enjoying, guys? Zoomers and YouTubers? Now, Indian fiction.
Yes. What became the new name of Balram Halwai after being settled as the owner of the White Tiger Drivers, as seen in Adigas novel? What was his new name? Is it Mukesh Singh? Is it Ashok Sharma? Or is it Dharam Kumar?
It is a very hilarious satirical novel, which you would know because of the Netflix movie. Even if you have not read it, you might have watched the movie, right? Balram Halwai has become the owner of White Tiger Drivers by killing his own master and stealing his money. And he's writing all about his entrepreneurship to the Chinese premier. And what is his new novel? Sorry, new name? Ta-da-dang.
It is Ashok Sharma.
That is the name of his master also.
Yes.
Then,
next question. Salman Rushdie's latest novels like 2 Years, 8 Months and 28 Nights, The Golden House and Quixote are all set in which country? Is it America? Is it England? Or is it Spain?
so these are his latest novels, 2 Years, 8 Months and 28 Nights. Remember, easy to remember the title, 28, 28 it is. 28, 28, 2 years, 8 months, that is 28. Again, 28 nights, remember, 28, 28. Then Golden House, then Quixote. Where are they all set? Ta-da-dang.
They are all set in America.
Other important fiction writers.
First question, who is the author of Kafka on the Shore that tells the stories of the young Kafka Tamura, a bookish 15-year-old boy who runs away from his Oedipal curse? Is it Carol Shields? Is it Haruki Murakami? Or is it Kurt Vonnegut?
Everybody would know this, right? Kafka on the Shore. Answer is
Haruki Murakami.
very beautiful writer. Try to read. Then.
Which of the following is not true about Gabriel Garcia Marquez' 100 Years of Solitude? Okay. It is published in 1967. It is the story of Buendia family, or is it set in Manawaka?
All of us know that, Reshma.
Yes, ma'am. Set in Manawaka.
That is wrong, Reshma.
Last time we had confusing options, so I thought I should set easier option.
Yes. Here comes.
Yes. Identify the debut novel of Isabel Allende that details the lives of the Trueba family spanning 4 generations. Is it Portrait in Sepia? Is it The House of the Spirits? Is it The Porcelain Fat Lady?
Which of these is the debut novel of Isabel Allende? It is
The House of the Spirits.
Latin American writer. Guys, did you know, guys, when our American Literature Encyclopedia comes, we are calling it Literature of the Americas, Encyclopedia of Literature of the Americas. That means Latin American literature and Canadian literature also there. Did you know that? Thank you. That was all for today, 9:30 sharp. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Reshma. Happy learning.
Thank you, ma'am.
Did you enjoy, guys? We did a lot today, didn't we? Bye, YouTubers. I am ending the YouTube.